All right, so this is Out of the Park Baseball. I am doing game one of my all-time World Series. And what this is I have completed a tournament featuring every single team, essentially, that you can use in Out of the Park Baseball's tournament mode um, that you can actually find. Maybe I'll just go back to it just so I can show where it is. On their Out of the Park screen, you have your tournament node, or actually, hold on. New game, historical expedition, and you can set up a tournament. So basically what I have done is I have set up a tournament for every single franchise where every single team from every single era plays each other. So let's say a team has 60 teams in their franchise. I set up every single team by year and had them play in a tournament. I seeded them. I had my own ways of seeding, and they played every single game. And then there's teams who had 123. So as you can see, Out of the Park Baseball, you can only do 70. So I actually split the tournaments in half. I did a 61 team tournament and 62 team tournament, and then those two teams, the winners of those two teams, played in a championship game or a championship series. And ultimately, I determined a franchise champion for 30 different franchises. And this is kind of the culmination of all of that. I did end up putting this into a regular season mode thing, mostly so I could edit some of the uniforms. If you look here, the Cleveland Indians, they're actually automatically called the Guardians when you play in any other mode. I think that's a restriction put in place by Major League Baseball. So I put this in this mode so I could edit all the uniforms. Some of the helmets were off color-wise, so I wanted to fix that. And then I wanted the Cleveland Indians authentic logo in and name instead of the Guardians. Not that I agree with the Chief Wahoo logo for by any means. I just like the authenticity, so I put that in the game. Just because it was really strange. When I played the regular tournament mode, you basically had teams from the 1940s wearing the Cleveland Guardians uniforms, which has a Nike swish on the shoulder, and just none of it made any sense to me. So I did it this way so I could edit the Cleveland logo. But essentially, every single team has a championship representing them, and this has been a tournament that started with round one, and then all these teams played each other in the first round, round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, all-time World Series is where we're at now. If you want to follow all this and see exactly how it broke down, I do have a few articles on my blog. It's called winterinbaseball.com, and that is where I have all this written. I'm kind of new to the YouTube aspect of this, so I will put the link in the description below. I hope. Like I said, kind of new to this part of it, so I'm just kind of seeing how this works out for me. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna play the finals. I wanted to play every single game. Well, it's not play. I'm not playing any of them. They're being played by the computer. But I like to visually see it just to bring a little bit more life to this. I could have just simulated everything, which would have gotten everything done quicker. But because I wanted to see things played out, I wanted to see the uniforms, I wanted to see the action on the field, I wanted to see the stadiums and the ballparks that they played in. I've played out some of the games, not all of them. I have my own way of simulating, breaking down by simulation and playing live games throughout the whole process. And I wanted it to be a more live experience. I've played a game from every single round in this series. So basically, like let's say round of six. Let's go to quarterfinals because it breaks down easily. We got 4 teams. I would play each team. As long as somebody was still alive, I would play another game. So I played game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, game 6, game 7, if that happened, with a team from every single round. Not the same team every single time, but I would do that. Same for the semifinals and then the all-time World Series. I'm going to play have every single game played out, so we can kind of see how it breaks down. The finals is the 1943 St. Louis Cardinals, who won the pennant in 1943. It was a World War II era team, and it's the first time that the war actually affected rosters on the field. So there are players in that World Series who did not compete for the Cardinals and the New York Yankees as well because of the war, because they were serving in the service. So there are players who are on the 1942 World Championship team who did not play in who did not play in the World Series in 1943 essentially. Same for the Yankees, who they actually lost to. And that was the first year that the war affected the major leagues, and it did affect a few other seasons as well. So even though I'm a Cubs fan, and I do not like the St. Louis Cardinals by any means. I actually think the 1943 Cardinals could be interesting because you'd be essentially, if I did the season the way I want it. Okay, so let me backtrack. I'm actually playing. This tournament is also to decide the team I'm going to use to build a franchise with in Out of the Park Baseball, because I have not played a franchise in Out of the Park Baseball 25 yet, as I didn't really have any ideas on who to play as. So because of that, I just decided to play this big tournament and then let the game decide for me ultimately who I want to play as. It's backfired a little bit because I am a Chicago Cubs fan, so if I have to play as the St. Louis Cardinals, that'll be a little awkward because I'm not a big Cardinals fan. But if I have to play as a Cardinals team, a team from the 40s is fine. You get to use cool players like Stan Musial, and then some of their other roster, which we'll go over once I get into the game. This is a team that lost, like I said, they lost the World Series. They won the year before, and they actually won in 1944. Again, some of it's war affected, so that'll be interesting because you're basically, what if the war didn't affect 1943? What if that doesn't happen? And we'll kind of see how the season breaks down. Now, that Cardinals team is very, very good. They won over 100 games, and with a full roster, maybe they win the World Series. But like I said, maybe they don't because the Yankees were also pretty good, and they're easily the best team remaining. They're also the only team who's played every single possible round. So when you have 123 teams, yes, some teams get buys, so they're not playing. It basically would be a 7-round tournament if you don't get a bye. And the 1943 Cardinals did not get a bye. So because of that, they had to play all 7 rounds to win the Cardinals championship. And now in this round, there's 2 teams who got buys. And it explains how I did my seeding on the blog post. But ultimately, this team did not qualify for a bye by that metric either. So they played every single round in this tournament. And so with that, they've played 7 rounds, and now this is the 5th round. So if they win this, they would have won 12 rounds. They've won 11 rounds to get here. So that's a unique thing with this 1943 St. Louis Cardinals team. They're definitely the favorites in the series. They're the better team by record. Although, again, with the war-torn season, it's hard to say how good they really, really were. But they won 105 games, which is pretty ridiculous. Very, very good ball club. They won the pennant by 18 games. Never really threatened at all that season, but they did lose the World Series. So there is kind of a what if, try to redemption story as they try to gain the all-time World Series. The other end of it is the 2017 Diamondbacks. Now, the 2017 Diamondbacks, they're also in interesting clubs because they're kind of under the radar. Um, when you think great teams from that season, you probably think the Houston Astros, who won the World Series, and then obviously they had the scandal. That's not something I'm going to talk about here. I'm not going to get into that too much. But they had the scandal, but they won the World Series that year, and they also played the Dodgers, or they also finished behind the Dodgers. The Dodgers were the other great team that year. The Dodgers won the pennant that year, but also in the division that the Diamondbacks play in, they finished ahead of them by quite a few games. So the Diamondbacks were kind of in the dust. The Dodgers that year won 104 games, a very, very good team. They ended up going through the National League. They ended up winning the pennant. The Diamondbacks, kind of under the radar, end up making the playoffs as a wild card. They win the wild card game. I believe they beat the Colorado Rockies to win that wild card. And so with the wild card win, they make the playoffs. They get swept by the Los Angeles Dodgers. Kind of an under the radar team. Even in this tournament, they're an under the radar team, even though they're the first team because I did the tournaments by alphabetical order. The Arizona Diamondbacks were actually the first team to win a championship. So the Arizona Diamondbacks have been on my list of teams who are champions of the franchise for a very, very long time, since the first time I did this. So they've been alive for a long time, but as far as great teams go, they're not somebody I really expected to get too far. I mean, they're a 93 win team. They didn't go far in the playoffs. There's been so many great teams in this tournament, and quite frankly, they weren't one of them. But the further and further this tournament's gotten along, and now they've beaten some really, really good teams. One, for example, is last round they beat the 1986 Mets, who I think are one of the greatest baseball teams to ever play. They're also a big-time what-if story because of the some of the issues that the club had with partying in the 80s. I'll just put it that way. But the 86 Mets were very, very good, and the Diamondbacks beat them to get to this finals. So kind of surprising that happened. I think because I'm choosing one of these teams to be the team that I end up playing with, I think the Cardinals are a more interesting team for me. I like to play older franchises in this game as opposed to newer franchises, although 2017 is starting to get back there. I mean, we're looking at 7 years old now, which is nuts. The 2017 season was a weird season for me because I'm a Cubs fan, and that's the first season where my team was defending champions. But being defending champions as a Cubs fan was interesting because it kind of felt like a weight off the shoulders season where nothing they did mattered. It wasn't like a normal situation where your team's defending champions where you're like, we want to build a dynasty. I mean, obviously I wanted that, but the Cubs could have done no wrong that season. They could have had an absolute losing record, and I never would have felt any negative association with that club. So the 2017 season kind of felt like a dream to begin with. And the Cubs did do pretty solid. They made it all the way to the NLCS, but they lost to that aforementioned Juggernaut Dodgers team. But I just don't necessarily, because of my desire to play more historical, I'd rather have the 1943 Cardinals win because there's a lot more interesting things I could do. I could see older stadiums, older uniforms, things of that nature. I believe the only stadium that didn't exist in 2017 that exists now is Globe Life Field in Texas. Could be wrong, but just thinking about it, I can't think of any other stadium that's changed. Even pretty much all the uniforms have stayed the same. So there's not really a lot as far as the aesthetics of baseball from 27 that looks different now. Some of the strategies I think have changed. I think we're even more analytically driven in 2014 or 2024 than we were then. The runner on second base rule and extra innings didn't exist until the COVID year. And then the three pitcher rule. So there's different rules that didn't exist in 2017 that do exist now. So there's a little bit of difference, but overall, fairly similar era. A lot of the players from 2017 are even still playing today. So while there's definitely stuff and intrigue there, I would rather see the Cardinals win it so I could play from an earlier era. But yeah, enough about that. We're gonna get this started here. So we click play. As you see, the first game of the series, you have Mort Cooper going against Robbie Ray. Pretty good pitching matchup. The other thing that's hadn't happened in this tournament is I seeded these teams the way I wanted them seeded, and it went based upon success in the playoffs. So if you swept the World Series 4-0, you're a higher seed than somebody who even won a World Series 4-1, or teams who lost the World Series, and then it kind of went down further and further and further as playoffs were decided. The Arizona Diamondbacks, like I said, did not do very well in the playoffs. They got swept in the first round, so they're one of the lower seeds out of everybody who qualified. If you didn't qualify for the tournament, or if you didn't qualify for the playoffs in your season and you made the tournament, which did happen with a few teams, you're on the lower end of the seeding thing. But regardless, the St. Louis Cardinals are actually a higher seed than the Diamondbacks, but for some reason in this tournament mode, the home field advantage has been off. And it's not determined based upon seed. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's because when I put it in this mode to edit uniforms, I don't know if it messed with it, but for some reason they're off. So that's why the Diamondbacks has home field advantage. I'm so deep into this, I just didn't want to replay stuff and do it again. And so at this point, it is what it is. So the Diamondbacks get home field advantage. I think for the most part, it hasn't really negatively affected the home team. Even when the home team loses, or even when the higher seed loses, they lose like 2 or 3 games at home. So the way I see it is home field wouldn't have mattered anyways. So I don't think it's really been that big of a problem, but that's why that's the case here. And we look at the lineups. The game thinks the Cardinals are definitely advantageous lineup wise. Only 2 different positions in the lineup where the Diamondbacks are actually rated higher. But I think these are interesting teams. The Diamondbacks is actually a lot better of a team than I remember. AJ Pollock, that was a year he was really, really good. And you can tell by his ratings. These are out of 5 stars. He's 3.5 stars out of 5. Strong player. David Peralta, solid player. JD Martinez, he ended up getting a big contract with the Red Sox, I think, after this season. So I think 2018 is when he got signed with the Red Sox. Paul Goldschmidt ended up going to the Cardinals. I don't know if it was after this year or a year later, but obviously great player. He might even be a Hall of Fame player. Like, he's that good. Nick Ahmed, he's got 3 stars. Brandon Drury hasn't been that good. It wasn't great, but in this tournament, he's been series MVP of 2 different series. He's been red hot. He's been very, very good. I don't know if the stats are documented somewhere. I could look at those for sure as everything kind of breaks down. Jake Lamb, if you look at his stats from that year, decent, not great, but 30 home runs. So I mean, 30 home runs, 105 RBI, 248 average isn't great, but 357 on base percentage, 47 slugging. So I'm kind of surprised he was rated this low. Must be not a great defender, and he's got a 45 rating on defense. So these scouting ratings are out of 100, I believe. So 100 good, lower bad. And I do think if you're playing these in game, the way the game works, scouting is not always 100% guarantee of the player's rating or being correct because it's trying to simulate real scouting. But I think in this tournament, the ratings are accurate to who they were. Could be wrong on that, but that's the way I interpret it. So if you look at this Diamondbacks lineup, very, very good. And then if you go to their pitching staff, Robbie Ray, very, very good. Go to here. They got a great bullpen. Archie Bradley, very good. Fernando Rodley, very good. David Hernandez, very good. Patrick Corbin in bullpen in relief, very good. If I remember right, yeah, this is before he went to the Washington Nationals and became a really good starter. Andrew Chafin, very good player. The starting pitching, Rob Ray, Zach Greinke, he's probably going to the Hall of Fame. Zach Audley. It's four starting pitchers right now because we're going with 1990 settings because the Reds were actually the number one seed. The 1990 Reds were the number one seed overall. So we are playing with 1990 settings. So that's why you see a uh, four starting pitchers. As a four-man staff. That's the way they played back then. That's the way it is. So really, despite the low 90s wins, which isn't bad by any means, it doesn't seem like it'd be good enough to win. But in this tournament, this is actually a pretty strong team, and it's not completely surprising that they're playing good ball. Now we go to this Cardinals team, who again was very, very good. You have guys like Walker Cooper, very highly rated, 5-star. Ken O'Day, is actually pretty good ratings. Now I actually wrote a blog article about him because another project I've gone down the list of every single World Series up until the 70s is where I'm at right now, and just analyze play by play from each series, kind of looking at the box scores, trying to determine players of the game and how the series went and how entertaining they were and different things throughout the World Series throughout history, especially ones before there was television, so you can't even watch them to get kind of a sense of how these games were. Ken O'Day always stood out as like a bench player who just did one or two things really, really well every series and ended up getting recognized for multiple World Series. He's not really a big name player, obviously, but I have an article written on him because he interests me. So he's a guy I like. But continuing on, pretty solid players in Luke Klein, Walter Karowski, Marty Marion, great defender, great shortstop from these Cardinals teams. Stan Musial, one of the best players to ever play, and he's 22 years old, so that makes him a very, very interesting player to build around. Should I build a dynasty with his team? So the starting lineup is very, very good. Very good starting staff as well. Mark Cooper, Harry Breacham, Max Lanier, all four pitchers very, very good. Where this team might have trouble, because this is an era where you're not as reliant on the bullpen. Look at this bullpen. Not very good. The best player, Red Munger, has a 3-star potential, but he's got a 2.5-star rating. Only Stuff is a decent rating here. Potential doesn't matter in this tournament. You're not going to reach your potential. What matters is your overall. And the Cardinals bullpen isn't very good, at least ratings wise. So that could be a problem. If this series goes deep, I think the Diamondbacks win it because they're going to have the stronger bullpen. I think if the Cardinals can just jump on them, and I think if it's a short series, I think the Cardinals win the series. But if it goes deep, I think the Arizona Diamondbacks win this thing. So that's just my thoughts. That's my breakdown. That's me trying to understand the game to kind of give an answer and who I think I'm going to win. And now I've talked for like 20 minutes. So I'm going to get to some gameplay. We're gonna get this thing going. So this is game one of the all-time World Series. We're in Arizona, Chase Field, 2017 Diamondbacks versus 1943 Cardinals, and we'll get this thing underway. And we have this thing kind of set up. So it's 2000. So this is another thing I just want to talk about real quick. One thing I like about this game And this is new to this newest version. I like to play the games in manager mode because I like to see what's going on. I feel like it's immersive. I don't get through as much of the season as fast as if I just simulated games, but for my personal preference, I like to see what's going on. And one thing you can do is set up your filters and basically kind of make it like, obviously the graphics aren't great enough where it looks like you're watching a real game, but it kind of creates that feeling. So if this were in St. Louis, because it's 1943 and this is actually the first season where video was sent to the troops, I would put it into sepia mode, and I'll show you what that looks like, kind of like this kind of reddish tent. If this is in St. Louis, that's actually the tent I would go through, but that's not the case. I could also do change the mode, but I wanted this to be more like baseball broadcast. I'm watching this game in 2017. That's what it looks like. And the advantage of that, of course, is you get to see the Cardinals in their full uniforms, something you wouldn't have been able to see in 1943, and it kind of brings them to life a little bit more. Plus, I like having the pictures here. There's there's a few things you can add to the game, like a few add-ons. Like this is how I got the realistic uniforms, realistic hats, and realistic faces actually for all these players. So it just brings a little bit of life to the game that isn't actually in the normal mode. Because if I was playing the normal mode, didn't upload these mods, there could be faces, but they would just be randomly generated. But these are actually like close interpretations of what they look like, so that's kind of fun. But anyways, here we go. We got Lou Klein batting for the Cardinals and Robbie Ray on the mound. 1-2 count, and he's going to ground to short. So the way I have it set up, if I wanted to, I could set it up pitch by pitch, and we could watch every single pitch. I don't want to do that for these. I want this thing to simulate pretty quick. I might do this in my season once I kind of determine who I play with, just to kind of, again, add some immersion. And playing with a better team, I might want to have a longer season instead of just trying to get it over with. But I haven't decided if that's what I'm going to do yet. So basically, it's whenever play the action takes place is the play that you see. So we got Ray Sanders up, who is the first baseman, and facing Robbie Ray. He's got a 2-2 count, as you can see, and he strikes out. Walker Cooper comes to the plate, and Cooper crushes one to left. That's actually going to be a home run. That thing is out of here, and it is 1-0 for the Cardinals. So a good start here in the first inning. After it looked like they go down 1-2-3, they actually take the lead on a home run. And Stan the Man Musial comes up, and he strikes out. So 1-0 Cardinals, and we'll see if the Diamondbacks can kind of bounce back. And AJ Pollock hits one hard, but that's going to be caught. So one down, David Peralta at the plate, and he will strike out. 2 outs now. Mark Cooper to JD Martinez, and with a 3-1 count, he will ground to short, and that'll be a 1-2-3 inning. So the Cardinals with a solid first inning. We move to the second. These games get going pretty quick too when you're doing it this way, especially if I'm not doing any sort of commentary. I just click one, and the plays happen over and over again. But Whitey Kurowski pops out to third, and we have an out. Litweiler up, and he will ground to short, and we have an out there. Danny Litweiler is his first name. I'm trying to get to know these Cardinals teams because I don't know every single player. I know a decent amount from the World Series project that I talked about that I was working on, but I don't know all these people. Debs Garms to the plate, which is definitely the best name in this, but it also kind of feels like you're swallowing marbles when you're naming him. But he's by far the best name on this team. You would think there'd be some more interesting names being the 40s, but Debs Garms is by far the best. And he's going to he's going to pop out on a 2-2 pitch, and it looks like the Diamondbacks are going to get out of this inning down 1-0. Paul Goldschmidt now to the plate. He's going to walk, I believe. Yep, he does end up walking. So one man on, nobody out, and then that's a strikeout there to Jake Lamb. Brandon Drury up, a guy I actually saw play at South Bend way back in the day. He played for the South Bend Silverhawks, and I lived there, and so I saw him play a decent amount for that team when he was in the minors. He ends up grounding out a nice play by the third baseman Kurowski to get the out. So Goldschmidt does advance to second, and now we have another walk as Nick Ahmed walks, and now Jeff Mathis to the plate with a chance to tie the game, but 2 outs. First and second, 2 outs. He's got a 2-0 count. He's going to drive this to six. That's actually going to go to the gap. Yep, it does go all the way to the wall. 1 run scores for sure. I think 2 runs are going to score, and they will. So it's 2-1, and Ahmed's going to get to third, or Mathis is going to get to third. So it's 2-1 Diamondbacks. Robbie Ray, something you don't see nowadays is pitchers hitting, but in this format they do, and he is going to ground out to end the inning. But a big 2-out double. Actually, he's not. That's going to be a single, an infield single, and it's 3-1 now. AJ Pollock comes up and he grounds to third, and he's out at second. So the Cardinals do allow 3 runs. The Diamondbacks have taken a 3-1 lead, completely turning this game around so far, but we're still early. Marty Marion draws a leadoff walk, and he's going to be bunted over. No, he's not. They're going to get the force out. So a big play as Cooper tries to bunt him over, but instead he's out. Lou Klein now to the plate, and 3-2 count. He'll strike out. Ray Sanders with a 3-2 count, and he strikes out, so the Cardinals can't do anything. Bottom third here, Peralta, he's going to pop out. The Diamondbacks trying to get off to a good lead here because this is a team that has been playing really, really well, and now this is another very, very good team they're playing against as JD Martinez strikes out. Paul Goldschmidt up here. Very, very, very dangerous team right now, the way they've been playing. And Goldschmidt's going to absolutely destroy one, and that ball's gone. So 4-1 Diamondbacks. And, they're going to take a 4-1 lead. One thing I will say, the White Sox, or the Cardinals did play in the previous round, the 2008 White Sox, which is another team that kind of is playing above what they actually are. And they were red hot going into that series. They actually won game one, and the Cardinals ended up winning the next 4 games. So just because one game happens here doesn't necessarily mean that the series is over. But it would be a good start for the Diamondbacks, that's for sure. So 4-1 here in the top of the ninth, or top of the fourth. Walker Cooper is going to ground out. Stan Musial is going to also ground out to short. There's been a lot of grounders to short. Nick Oddman busy over there. Whitey Kurowski will ground to second. So more ground outs. Robbie Ray's got his ground ball pitching going, that's for sure. Bottom fourth as this game's moving along. Some good pitching by Rob Ray right now. Drury's going to fly out to left. Ahmed's going to fly out to center. So the Diamondbacks are hitting the ball in the air a lot more than the Cardinals. I don't know if that really matters, but that's definitely an observation I have right now. Mathis, and he flies out. All 3 outs actually are in the air, so that's kind of something to know. Oh, well, it's not. I'm not making decisions for any of these teams. Another strikeout to Lickweiler. Garms, he grounds to short first. Marion is going to pop out. So the Cardinals have 1 hit right now through 5, down 4-1. They're a little bit in trouble this game. Ray's going to fly out himself. Pollock's going to ground to second. And Peralta's going to, I think it's a base hit. He's going to single. So Arizona keeps applying pressure. It seems like every inning they're getting at least 1 man on base, and the pass ball here. So now a base hit by Martinez could score. He actually ends up getting walked. Goldschmidt, that's actually dangerous. Now you have Paul Goldschmidt at the plate, and he is going to ground out. So they escape any damage there. Top of the 6th now, still 4-1. Mark Cooper at the plate, and he's going to strike out. Rob Ray is pitching really well this game. Another ground out. Klein to Ahmed. Ahmed's got to have 5 or 6 putouts so far. Sanders comes up, and he actually is going to single. So the second hit of the game for the Cardinals. If they can get another base runner on, they do have the time run at the plate, despite the fact that they haven't really done much today against Ray. And now they're going to get that time run to the plate. So 4-1, 2 base hits in a row. Going to go to third is Sanders. Stan Musial. This is a pretty big spot so far in this game. Robbie Ray staring him down against Stan the man. And Stan Musial hits it hard to center, but it'll be caught, and the Diamondbacks escape. Jake Lamb now to the plate here in the bottom of the 6th is going to pop up to the catcher. Drury's going to strike out, and that's going to be a grounder to second. So not much going for the Diamondbacks that inning. Robbie Ray, let's see if he can continue his pretty solid outburst. Kurowski's going to strike out on a drop third strike. Litweiler is he's going to get a base hit. Cardinals getting to him a little bit more, but I wouldn't say they are playing extremely well, but they're definitely getting to him a little bit more. So if they can chip away at this, it is late, but they can chip away at this a little bit and maybe get back in this game. That's a ground out by Garms. Does get the player of the third. Marion needs a clutch hit here to make this 4-2. And he won't get it. Another ground out, and the Diamondbacks again escape with no runs allowed. So they only have 2 more innings to get back into this game, or else the Diamondbacks are going to take a 3-1 or 1-0 series lead. Jeff Mathis walks in 4 pitches. Chris Iannetta pinch hitting for Ray walks on a full count. Mort Cooper still in this game. Remember what I said, this Cardinals bullpen is not very good, and this is an era where starters went deep. And Mort Cooper is definitely doing that, and he's capable of it. I mean, his stamina is really good, 85 out of 100. So very, very good pitcher, and he's only thrown 97 pitches too. You can see that right here. And he's just a good pitcher overall. He hasn't been great this game, but he's a good pitcher overall. The 5 walks is what's killed him. 2 strikeouts, and now it's going to be a big problem. AJ Pollock just crushes one to the wall. That might actually put this game out of reach in game 1. That's going to make it 5-1. They do hold the runner up, but second and third, nobody out. Peralta's going to strike out. Martinez is going to hit one to center. The center fielder makes the play. Tagging and scoring is the runner. It's 6-1. Goldschmidt's going to hit one. That's going to be an infield single. So the Diamondbacks are really, really getting some pressure on here. Ernie White's now going to come into pitch. It's pretty much going to be in a cleanup role, I think, because this is a 6-1 ball game. I think the Cardinals just have to kind of see if they can save face for the next game. There'll still be plenty of time left to come back in the series, but I don't think today's it. There's going to be a double. Jake Lamb's going to at least knock in one. I think he's going to knock in a second. It's going to be 8-1 Cardinals or Diamondbacks. They are really rubbing it out now. And they probably can do damage against this bullpen, and they really are. Drury's going to come through with a hit. It's 9-1. That's 5 runs this inning for the Diamondbacks. Nick Ahmed's going to strike out to finally end the inning, but it's probably over for this one. A 9-1 ball game. Patrick Corman in now to pitch for the Diamondbacks. I think he's just pitching to kind of eat up the last 2 innings and give themselves the win. Pop up there. Lou Klein's now in. He's going to ground to short. I don't think today's the day for this Cardinals team. Sanders, he's going to ground out too. They have 1 more inning left to come back in an 8-run ball game. This thing's basically over. Bud Byerly now into pitch. This is definitely to mop up the last inning of the game. He does strike out Mathis, and then Ketel Marte's pinch hitting now, and he strikes out too. AJ Pollock, let's see if this is the last at bat for the Diamondbacks of the day. It probably is, as he pops up, and the last catch is going to be made. So we go to the top of the 9th, barring one of the greatest comebacks you'll ever see in the all-time tournament for sure. This thing's over. Jimmy Shefferly is going to come in, probably to end this ball game. He's got a 3-2 count to Walker Cooper, who does draw a walk. Stan Musial comes up, 3-1 count. He draws a walk. So first and second, nobody out. Not dying easily is this Cardinals team. Whitey Kurowski maybe trying to send a little bit of a message for the rest of the series that this team is not to be taken lightly. Just because this one's over doesn't mean we'll stop battling. Now, Kurowski's going to try one to center. So the bases are loaded with nobody out. Danny Litweiler at the plate. Now, if a home run happens now, it's still a 9-5 ball game. So this game is very much not to be stressed over, but now there's a walk. So now it's 9-2. Bases loaded still. A home run makes this 9-6. If Garms can get in, this thing actually does get a little bit interesting. 2-2 pitch, he pops up. That's a big out because the Cardinals can still make this a little bit interesting. They have time to do it. Ken O'Day, the guy I mentioned earlier, let's see what he can do. He's got a 3-2 pitch, and he strikes out. Oh, man. The animations can be a little tricky at times. I thought he did draw the walk, but it says he actually checked his swing and struck out. So that's a big out. It's going to take a miracle now. Johnny Hopp is now pinch hitting. And he's going to swing at the first pitch and drive it to center, and that'll be the game. So the Arizona Diamondbacks win the first game of the series 9-2, and they lead the all-time World Series 1-0. So that's that.